This 2 hours has gone by so fast, Rev. But it is time to get to the number one biggest news story of 2022. It's pretty obvious. It's the Ukraine war.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, this is pretty much taking over all of our lives. I mean, we just talked about inflation in the past segment. And, you know, after the whole invasion, gas prices went up to, like, I think it was $5, over $5. I remember I took a picture. I was at the gas station. I took a picture in Lake Station, and I think I was paying something like $5.54 for gas per gallon. And I remember I put it up on Twitter. I was stunned. Like, these prices are insane. Now, obviously, look, I don't hide my personal feelings about the Russia-Ukraine war. My personal opinion, I believe that this is not something that just happened because Vladimir Putin woke up on the wrong side of the bed and decided that he wanted to invade just his neighbor. I believe this goes back to the end of the Warsaw Pact and, the United States and other Western powers promising that they would stop expanding NATO eastward in the early 90s, telling Mikhail Gorbachev, that, who actually did pass away this year, in the year 2022, telling him that they would no longer expand NATO eastward. There's no need to without the Warsaw Pact. There's no reason for NATO to exist, especially once the Soviet Union collapsed at the end of 1991. Joe Biden, our current president, talked in the late 90s. I played the clip here plenty of times on this show, where he said that continuing to move NATO eastward and expand would cause a hostile reaction from Russia. You had 50 scholars and ambassadors write Bill Clinton in 1997, along with George Kennan, who was the ambassador to the Soviet Union, who all said that expanding NATO eastward, continuing to expand NATO eastward, would be the biggest foreign policy mistake of the 21st century, that it would trigger a hostile response from Russia. You have Vladimir Putin himself telling George W. Bush in 2007 that if you guys expand into Georgia and Ukraine, I'm going to have to take Crimea because I can't let you guys surround me. This was in 2007. That's 15 years ago.
Interesting.
Yes. So so 15 years ago, we all knew what was coming. Basically, if we kept doing.
You know, as you were saying that, a thought just popped into my head.
Right.
You're right. NATO exists, at least officially, in response to the Warsaw Pact. Although, as I recall, historically, supposedly, NATO actually pre-existed the Warsaw Pact a little bit, but that was always been the explanation of why we
still had it.
We had NATO. It's because of the Warsaw Pact. But I think behind that, there was always this understanding, at least we were being told, that the Warsaw Pact really didn't exist in the same way that NATO existed.
Right.
That NATO existed as a free joining of nations who felt like they had mutual interests, while the Warsaw Pact existed because Russia needed a buffer between them and the West.
Right, because they've been invaded multiple times by Napoleon and other people from the West. Yeah,
because there's nobody to the east of them but China.
Yeah.
So, you know.
And Siberia. I mean, who wants to mess with, who wants to go through Siberia?
Yeah, so their biggest threat was always from Western Europe.
Right.
And then there is some history there, like you pointed out. But not only there, but also you got the history. One thing that people don't realize is the Crusades didn't only pit, quote, Christendom against Islam. It also pitted Western Christianity against Eastern Christianity. So there is all that history. But then the question arises, as I recall, there was a point where Russia said, we want to be part of NATO.
Yeah, he told Bill Clinton that.
Yeah, because whatever NATO is, well, it's the biggest organization of states in Europe. Well, we want to be a part of it too.
Yeah.
Because our nation, a significant part of our nation is in Europe. and another part is in Asia.
Right.
And they were told no.
Yeah, Bill Clinton told Vladimir Putin to kick rocks, basically.
Yeah. So now you done pissed the guy off. His ego is on the line. And Russian people have egos.
Yeah.
You know, they have pride. And you're right. Something was going to happen. The law of unintended consequences always kicks in. And sometimes you create a problem that you got to deal with, even though you wish you didn't have to deal with it. And you don't want to admit it, but to some extent, it's your fault. Is that where you're going with this?
Well, absolutely.
We created this monster.
And let me just say this. This has been extremely good for the military-industrial complex. $100 billion.
Oh, yeah.
For some context, Russia only spends $65 billion on its military annually.
We can tell.
Yeah.
We can tell.
I think that's probably too much for the results that they've been getting, in all honesty. But I would say that ultimately, we've given Ukraine over $100 billion in 10 months. $100 billion. Right now, there is no countries in the world other than the United States and China that have a bigger military budget than Ukraine. Okay? There was actually a news story from CBS News that the military-industrial complex forced them to take down, where they did a story where they said, look, a lot of these weapons are coming up missing. They're coming up in the hands of, we don't know where they're coming up at. We don't know what they're like. We don't know who's ending up with these weapons.
Right.
So if in 2023, 2024, and beyond, we're going to, just like we saw the consequences of what happened in Afghanistan and Iraq and Libya, where it turned into like a giant slave plantation, we're going to see the consequences of putting an ungodly amount of weaponry in the hands of a lot of Nazis. I don't care how many liberals want to yell at you for crying about the, who have flags in their Twitter bios who want to cry about it, but they definitely have a large Nazi contingency within their military. Always have. Time magazine wrote about it. The Guardian, CNN, every single Western news outlet wrote about Ukraine's Nazi problem for a decade. Okay, and a lot of these people now have access to insane amounts of weapon. You're going to see the same problem that would happen when we started arming Al Qaeda and people in Syria and other places, and started helping a lot of these. Well, we helped the Mujahideen in Afghanistan. We saw the sort of the consequences of that, the blowback from that. 2023 will be about blowback, folks. 100%.
You know, one of the problems with that is that we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
During World War II, it was decided that the Soviet Union needed to be an ally, that we needed to support the Soviet Union's efforts. So we gave them weapons and equipment because we needed them on our side. Now we've decided we need, and by we I mean the governing authorities, we need the Ukraine on our side.
Yep.
And then the consequence of putting the Soviet Union on our side was the Cold War, it would seem. But sometimes, life is just messy. World War II, were you going to choose to be allied with Adolf Hitler? Nah. So the enemy of my enemy is my not enemy.
Right.
But then after the war is over, you still got your actual relationship. And in all of this, we've only heard about, well, we had to stop Russia, so therefore we had to defend Ukraine. And that may be true. Certainly defending Ukraine has exposed the weaknesses of Russia. But what happens afterward if we don't find a way to get them to stop that no longer entices Russia to feel the need? In other words, we don't go back and say, well, you know what? NATO might be the thorn in Russia's shoe that we need to pull out of their shoe. We need to change this dynamic. And we haven't really thought about it. We haven't talked about it because NATO has just been there.
Yeah, and like I said, NATO has, I think, outlived its usefulness, but it's currently exists as a sort of Western battering ram. We saw it happen in Libya.
Do you think NATO in part exists because the United States does not like the possibility of what happens if it is detached from Europe?
Oh yeah. Like after World War II, I think to a lot of our foreign policy people said, look, we can't let anything like that happen again. Like we can't let some guy come to power in Germany who might decide, hey, I want to take things over. No. So definitely it's our way of keeping a thumb on Europe.
Yeah.
And a lot of this is not even in their own best interest. Like a lot of Europe could freeze almost to death this winter because of this war.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't know that. Like, this is going to be bad for Europe. But again, they are in NATO. So they sort of made their bed and they're going to lay in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, before we get out of here, folks. Oh, we only got I got to hurry up and get out of here. A few deaths from the year 2022, people who I think made a difference in this world that we live in. Rest in peace to Ronnie Spector from the Ronettes. My man Coolio. Rest in peace to the great jazz musician Pharoah Sanders. Irene Cara. One of the greatest producers of all time, and Tom Bell. Pele just died. Maybe the greatest athlete of the 20th century. Rest in peace to the Mac. Max Julian died this year. Sidney Poitier died this year. Johnny Brown, Bookman from Good Times. Rest in peace to LaShawn Pace. I Know I've Been Changed, one of the great gospel singers of all time. Rest in peace to Michael Henderson, the great bass guitarist from Miles Davis and had some hits in the 70s. Nichelle Nichols, Uhuru from Star Trek. The late Bill Russell, one of the greatest basketball players of all time. Ramsey Lewis, and Gary, Indiana's own Jesse Powell. That really hurt me badly. I think he went to Emerson too.
Mm-hmm.
So rest in peace to all those folks. And always remember, you can chop it up with me on Twitter at The Chemist Lives after I get out of Twitter jail, which I'm currently in. But by tomorrow, I should be out of Twitter jail.
Okay.
The Chemist is spelled with a K, as I am a product of the Gary Community School System. We could talk about politics, music, sports. You can tell me how terrible I am at this. And you can watch clips of this show at my YouTube page, Scott Cannon WLTH. Where can they find you, Rev?
I will be this weekend, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. I'm coming to Unity Baptist Church's New Year's Eve event from 3 to 5. I'm also having an event at St. John's Lutheran Church from 6 to 7 on New Year's Eve. And then Sunday morning, I will be at Good Shepherd Lutheran Church at 10 a.m. That's at 719 West 25th Avenue. We're having a joint service with St. John's there, 10 to 11. Come meet me there.
Yes, and you can interact with all of us at WLTH at the new website, WLTHradio.com, the Facebook page, WLTH Radio. Tweet at us at WLTH Radio. See us on Instagram at, you guessed it, WLTH Radio. And you can listen to me and the Rev every Friday, 6 to 8 Central Standard Time. Same bat time, same bat channel. So for station owner Marion Williams, station manager Natalie Ammons, I am Scott Cannon. Over there is Reverend Delwyn Campbell. This is his Issues and Answers on WLTH 1370 AM. God bless the working class. God bless organized labor. And Rev,
God bless you.
We are out, humans.